Good evening, everyone. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske, and welcome to this latest edition of Teske's Tidbits. This is the first episode of the year 2026, so we thought it would be appropriate on this first show of 2026 to look at the big weather stories in central New York from 2025, and we had a number of things to choose from. There's plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about some winter weather. We're going to talk about some nice weather. And we'll also talk about some nasty storms that impacted parts of central New York during this past 12 months. So we'll take a look at that. And so it should be kind of interesting, may jog your memory a little bit. And really, the year started right off with snow leading up to the winter of 24-25. Lake Ontario was running warmer than normal, much warmer than normal. So that opened up Lake Ontario to some very heavy lake effect snow. And for Syracuse and central New York, there hadn't been much lake effect or heavy lake effect snow in previous winters. I know Watertown and Buffalo got a lot of the headlines, but this year, the heavier snow, or at least in 2025, the beginning of the year, the headlines were just north of Syracuse in parts of Oneida as well as Oswego counties. The first one right out of the gate was January 1st through the 5th, and that really pummeled areas of northern Oneida County. In fact, Stokes, that's in northern Oneida County. They had 75 inches over those 5 days, just over the border in eastern Oswego County. Williamstown had 65 inches of snow. And that wasn't even the heaviest of the lake effect snow. There was another kind of multi-day lake effect event that occurred in the early part of February, roughly from the 9th to the 15th, or the 18th, I should say. And that dropped some prodigious snow over Oswego County. Check out this total from the 9th through the 18th in Palermo. There was 95.6 inches of snow just in that period of time, just a little bit more than a week. A really remarkable set of storms, the cold air coming over Lake Ontario. Very, very impressive snow totals. And it was really broken down into three parts. The first part was the heavy snow that fell on the 9th through the 11th. And Palermo picked up 27 inches of snow. That's pretty impressive total in itself. But that was only part one of a three-part play, if you will. The 13th through the 14th, they picked up an additional 36 inches of snow, so a little bit more than 3 feet of snow. But the topper came a couple days after that. The 16th through the 18th, they picked up 40.7 inches of snow. And in between those three events, there was a little bit more in the way of snow that ended up getting to that total of 95.6 inches of snow. So it was obviously a big dig out that went on in Oswego County, because it wasn't just Palermo that got snow. There were other big totals as well, but this was the biggest total over those three particular events. Big snow piles, lots of snow on roofs. So there was a big cleanup that was involved up over Oswego County with that, and Oneida County as well, because some of the heavy snow worked its way in there as well. So that's how the winter got started. The tail end of the winter and the calendar year got started in central New York. For Syracuse, we got our share of snow, and for the first time since 18, 19, we ended up with more than 100 inches of snow. It was 115 inches of snow for that winter of 2024 through 25. So it felt more like a real winter, a regular winter here in central New York. But as we get into March, we typically start looking to spring, and that one event that really gets it started and you feel like it's right around the corner is the St. Patrick's Parade in Syracuse, in downtown Syracuse, usually held right around March 17th. Doesn't always coincide with St. Patrick's Day itself. But this year was a little different. Instead of looking ahead to spring, it felt like spring. It was the warmest parade day on record in Syracuse. We had a high temperature of 69 degrees. I think, as you look at the footage, people were so happy to be out and not bundled up for a change on parade day. So it was a really, really nice change of pace. The average high around parade day is around 40, 41. So they have temperatures close to 70 degrees, about 30 degrees above normal for this time of year. That was really a noteworthy event that took place. Fast forward to the month of May, and that was memorable because it seemed like we took a step back. We had quite a bit of cool weather and also quite a bit of rain. 24 out of the 31 days during the month had at least a trace of rain. We were more than an inch above normal for the month, and it was very cool. Even at the very end, there was the last Saturday of the month of May. We were raining in the afternoon. Temperatures were in the 40s. It was miserable. So it did not bode well, it seemed like, as we headed into the start of the summer months, June, July, and August, with that cool and wet May. June was kind of punctuated by a severe weather event. That occurred during the overnight of June 21st into the morning of June 22nd. This was a setup as very hot air was rushing in toward the northeast. Following the storms that night, we did end up with a couple of days where we were in the mid-90s. But before that heat got here, some very strong, severe thunderstorms developed north of the border in Canada and then dropped south through central New York. We saw hints of that being a possibility several days before that. And we had the station manned here in terms of coverage for that particular storm. The storms brought the most damage east of Syracuse. There were actually 2 touchdowns of tornadoes, one in Clark Mills, another in Clinton, both in Oneida County. Both storms were EF1 storms with over 100-mile-per-hour winds, quite a bit of damage. Clark Mills, that particular tornado, unfortunately resulted in 3 fatalities. 3 people lost their lives in that particular storm as it moved through. It was pre-dawn. It was before sunrise as the storms came through. And there was very heavy rain as well. The Oneida High School was badly damaged with water damage, and they're still feeling the effects of it today, as the students haven't even gone back to that particular school yet. They're still rebuilding, cleaning things out, and that cleanup continues to this day. So that was June 22nd, the morning of June 22nd, those very strong thunderstorms that moved through there. And as I mentioned, the heat built in after that. The summer got off to a hot start and cooled off a little bit toward August. The fall was fairly nice. And, again, leading into the start of the winter, Lake Ontario, the temperatures were warmer than normal again. Our winter outlook talked about Lake Ontario being productive, and that has turned out to be the case as we've started the winter with the months of November and December, in particular December's snow. That produced quite a bit of lake effect, first off in the early part of the month, but toward the end of the month, an even more significant lake effect storm impacted parts of central New York, and in particular Syracuse. A lot of times when lake effect occurs, we're talking about other spots, the Tug Hill, Oswego County, Watertown, Buffalo, but Syracuse on December 30th had a daily snowfall of 24.2 inches of snow. That's midnight to midnight. We had that amount of snow. And for the time being, that is the second snowiest day on record in Syracuse. And I say for the time being because just a couple of days before we started recording this episode, a viewer pointed out that the record, which right now is 34 inches set on February 15th, 1946, looks a little bit suspicious. And sure enough, as I look back at the numbers there, on the 15th, it's recorded with a high temperature of 28, the low of 7, snowfall 34 inches of snow. But on the next day, the 16th, where it lists the snow depth, which you would figure would be close to 34 inches, maybe 30 inches on the ground, there's only 2 inches of snow on the ground. So something didn't seem right. And what I've done is pass that along to the National Weather Service in Binghamton, which covers the Syracuse area, to give them a heads up. Hey, something doesn't seem right about this. And sure enough, they've looked at it, and they've passed it along to one of the main climate centers in NOAA in Asheville, North Carolina. And they're going to look over those numbers. So, here we are in early January 2026. There's a possibility that December 30th, 2025 could, I'll emphasize could, end up being reclassified as our snowiest day on record in Syracuse. The other side note to this total is that 1 day snow total is higher than either of the single day totals for the blizzard of 66 or the blizzard of 93. Now, of course, those were 2-day storms, nor'easters followed by a day of lake effect. But neither one of those individual days in either of those blizzards had as much as 2 feet of snow in Syracuse. So at the very least, even if we stay second place, it's still a very significant snowfall in Syracuse. So 1 day away from the final day of 2025, making headlines here in Syracuse with that lake effect snow. Those are some of the major events that occurred. We'll kind of get into some of the numbers here after we take this break to show you, some of the rainfall numbers month by month, and also the temperatures as well to show you that breakdown as well. So that's something we'll take a look at in the second part of this edition of Teske's Tidbits. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Teske's Tidbits. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske as we take a look back, review of the weather for 2025 in Syracuse and in central New York. For the first part of the show, we kind of honed in on some specific events, some more notable things that happened during the year weather-wise. But this next part, we're going to kind of break things down and kind of dig inside the numbers a little bit and see what happened. This is a breakdown, as you take a look at this, of each month as far as the temperature and the precipitation is compared to normal. And a couple things stand out that, I do want to kind of highlight here as we look at each month. First off, as you look at the temperatures, you can see most of the months ended up with temperatures above normal. Only May, August, and then the last 2 months, November and especially December, were below normal. 8 out of the 12 ended up with above normal temperatures. And you can see early in the year was a very warm start for our weather here in central New York. March was over 7 degrees above normal. If you remember in the first part, we were talking about the very warm, the record-breaking warmth on Parade Day, St. Patrick's Parade Day here in Syracuse. Well, it was the entire month where temperatures were above normal. The other thing to point out here is what went on with precipitation. And precipitation was kind of all over the place. Let me pull this up full screen again. I noticed that 6 out of the 12 months had either deficits or surpluses of more than an inch. It was an inch above normal in February, a little shy of 2 inches below normal in March, more than an inch and 1.87 inches above in May, almost 2 inches below in July, 2 inches above in November, and also an inch and a half above in December. So you could almost say that precipitation-wise, we were kind of made. It was kind of made up of extremes, and there was one stretch, notice from June through October here, where every month we had below normal precipitation, and leading into the fall season, that resulted in much of central New York being in drought. Some parts of the North Country were in severe drought. One thing that kind of helped us out here was the last 2 months. I mean, we went in to the month of November running a deficit of about 3.5 inches, but things came on strong. And notice November was more than 2 inches above normal, and we were about 1.5 inches above normal for the month of December. So it came out, I think, technically, when you figure those last 2 months in there, we ended up essentially normal precipitation-wise, just under 40 inches of total precipitation. That's rain, or in the case of the winter, melted snow. The liquid equivalent is what we call it. And that, actually helped us toward the end of the year. But that being said, I know we haven't shown this on the air much because we're, out of the growing season, but do have to mention that as of last week, there were still parts of central, western, and northern New York that were under, some type of drought conditions. And in particular, this was an area that was a problem in the fall, parts of the Finger Lakes over toward Rochester in moderate drought. And there's still moderate drought being reported up across the St. Lawrence River Valley, parts of the Adirondacks as well. We'll see how that at least the snowpack that we have will kind of help things here going into the spring. But that's something that we'll have to watch for early in 2026. Again, it's not as much of a concern now. A lot of it will depend on what we get the rest of the season as far as snow is concerned. And then eventually the spring, what will happen with rain there. That could influence those numbers as well. So that's the stats as far as the wet weather is concerned, or lack of it in some cases. Some other interesting things about the temperature for the entire year. First off, go back to this chart. I do want to show this again. Notice September, we were 1.3 degrees above normal, and that actually continues a streak that started in 2014. Every September since then, and it's now 12 and even dozen years, where our September temperature has been above normal. And actually, that should be plus 1.6 degrees for September 2025, not minus 1.6. So the takeaway there is, it's pretty remarkable. I know that a lot of months have been fairly warm. That's been a change in our climate in general, but none have had this consistency over the last dozen years where every one of a particular month was above normal in temperatures. And, it's not a case where some of those years it was close, maybe 1/10 or 2/10 of a degree above normal. The smallest surplus was 2020, where we were 9/10 of a degree above normal. Some were very warm. 2024 was 4.5 degrees above normal, and 2015 was about 5 degrees above normal. So it'll be interesting in 2026 to see if we keep that particular streak going. With a cold end to the month, the last 2 months of the year, you may be interested to know what happened in terms of the snow or the temperature for the year. And this graphic will show you last year, 2024 was the warmest on record in Syracuse at 53.3 degrees. And you can see a number of recent years, including 2021 and 2023, are in that top 4. It was not as warm in 2025, but compared to the average from, the 30-year average, 1991 through 2020, we still ended up about a half a degree above normal. It was the 26th warmest on record. Keep in mind, records go back all the way to 1902. They started in August 1902. So that's pretty impressive there, that despite the fact that it wasn't as warm, it still almost cracked the top 20 or top 25 here in Syracuse. So that's, kind of a remarkable number as well. As I mentioned, the change in climate has been showing more and more of these recent years showing up in the warmest years on record in Syracuse. So that kind of highlights some of the bigger numbers, the more impressive stories for us here in Syracuse during the year 2025. We're going to have lots of interesting Teske's tidbits to come in 2026. We thank you for tuning in here on WSYR Plus, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.